I want to talk about how to navigate the dog in training, because before you begin training a dog, you really need to develop a certain vocabulary and understanding with the dog, so the dog knows when he's doing right and he knows also when he's doing wrong. And so it's very important to have certain vocabulary with your dog before beginning training. And also I want to talk about the importance of voice tone in dog training. So with the basic vocabularies that you need prior to training, you need to have a set of words, commands for good behavior, and a set of commands for bad behavior, for wrong behavior. And so for me, the good behavior, when the dog is showing me good behavior, I tell him good. And good means that you're doing something right and continue doing this. And sometimes I do reward for good, but oftentimes it just to show the dog, yes, you're on the right track, continue, and then we'll get to the point when I reward you. And so the rewarding command for me is yes. And so, for example, when I tell the dog, bring me the ball, right? And so he's searching for it, I'm telling him good, because he's on the right track, he's looking for that ball. But once he grabbed the ball, that's when I say, yes, that's what I wanted, right? And so the same is in training with variety of commands. For example, command sit, when the dog is trying, you tell him good, that's what I want, you have to keep doing this, but we want you to do it better, right? And so when the dog is for example, I give him command, I say good and yes right after he sit down, and yes usually when I reward, right? So in a way I'm teaching my dog a set of commands, because further in training you don't reward every step, but you reward certain precision moments in training. And so you need to let the dog know that he did right, but it's not yet a rewarding moment. That's why it's important to have good and yes, so you can distinguish the direction. The negative commands or commands for wrong behavior, I have several, and they do escalate the same as with good commands. They do escalate, which, good command is like you're doing great, but yes, it's the one we want, and so the escalation goes higher. For bad commands, I have it's also tone of the voice, but we'll talk about it in a second. For wrong behavior, when the dog is doing something wrong, but it's not critically bad, I tell the dog and then the next escalation would be no, don't do that, right? And so sometimes, so depending on the dogs, some dogs are very sensitive to your commands and your voice, and sometimes it's enough, but there are dogs that are very stubborn or just strong-minded, and sometimes they do stupid things, and so we need to escalate it further. And for me, I'm yelling, I can curse at the dog and say, what the hell are you doing? And so I'm yelling, and so that's escalation of my wrong command. But for example, with these two dogs, I never need to use anything higher. For example, my 13-year-old, Roscoe here, he's been with me for nearly 12 years now. With him, even is too strong. So when I tell him I try to be very, very, I have a smooth voice, because if I raise my voice and say like really strongly, he really freaks out. He doesn't need it. He's a soft dog. He's very responsive to my voice. With my puppy, he's pretty good, and I rarely use no command with him, because he's very good with as well. But I do need sometimes to escalate the voice when I say And for example, right now he's misbehaving. See, he stopped because he knows he shouldn't do it, but he keeps doing it now, and so I can tell him, hey, good, that's very good. See, so the escalation helps. And so you do need to find your comfort zone, or I should say your dog's comfort zone with your voice. Hey, where are you going? See, this guy didn't like my harsh command, so he's trying to escape. Hey, good boy. And so another important thing in training, and especially Dobermans, but I do this with other breeds as well, and I find it that all the breeds are very responsive to, is that right after you gave the dog a harsh negative command, and the dog stopped doing whatever he was doing, you have to tell him, you have to release him. Never leave a dog with the pressure of the negative command. So when he stopped, and you saw this a minute ago, when he stopped, I tell him good, because this is the behavior I want you to do. Continue doing this, right? And so it is critical, even if you have to punish the dog, even if the dog chewed up your furniture and you had to yell, no, what are you doing? Slap him maybe for that. But then once the dog stopped chewing, you have to pause it and say good, and change your voice and say good. I want you to be good. You shouldn't chew the couch, right? And so this is very critical in training as well, because sometimes when the dogs are young and they interested in you, it's pretty much positive training. You reward always, and you don't have to correct the dog. But when the dog becomes more mature and stronger, then you come to a point when the dog needs to learn a consequence of misbehaving, because they may choose not to obey anymore, and they might have some other interests when you're giving a command. And so it is very important to remember this, that you always have to release the pressure if the dog was given a harsh command. And so, for example, if the dog misbehaved, let's say the dog ran off, right, and you chased him or whatever, you catch the dog, you have to punish it, and you have to tell him, no, you're not allowed to do this anymore. But what do you do in this command? You can't tell him right away, good boy, right, because the dog then will think that, well, that was good. You can't do that. But what do you do is that then you give the dog some basic commands that he knows to perform, to execute, and then you release the dog, then you release the pressure and give him, okay, this is what I want you to do. So if you run off, you're bad dog, and I yell at you, and I yell harshly, I'm very unhappy with you, but hey, do sit, do down, and do come, and the dog behaves, right? And so you don't escalate it, you keep it very basic, and you keep it within the commands that the dog will succeed, and you let the dog succeed, and then you tell him, that's a good boy, very good boy. So I want you to be like this, I want you to be this dog, not the dog that runs away from me, right? And so that's critical in training. And finally, the last thing is that the tone of your voice is also very important, because dogs, they play, but if something happens, they growl and they bark, and so they do understand how the voice changing, and so that's the reason why they're very sensitive to it, because they use it in their own communication language. And so you have to adapt to that in order to find a better communication with your dog. And so it is important that your voice, so when the dog is doing great and you're happy with the dog, your voice is very soft. Like, for example, you're a good boy, you're a good boy, good boy, good boy, that's a good boy, that's a good boy, you're a good boy too, yay, good boy, good boy. See, and he's immediately into me, and he's happier, and he wants to lean to me, and so that's my good voice. And I want my dog to know that when he's good, I'm happy, and that's my happy voice. And so the dog always wants to make you happy. It just sometimes happens they misbehave, but you have to be very black and white about it, and you have to show I'm happy with that, and I'm very unhappy with that. So your voice with the negatives, especially when you're unhappy with the dog, have to change. And so when good commands are soft voiced, so usually my negative commands are hard voiced. And so, for example, I'm saying, "Hey, no, what are you doing?" See, and this guy put my poor Roscoe put his ears back because he's like, "Oh, what's going on?" And so this is very important. So you go from very soft voice and happy voice to very harsh and strong and punchy voice. So that also helps your dog understand what he's doing wrong, if he's doing something wrong. And so, for example, hey, good, yes, good boy. That's a good boy. See, so I gave him a treat and he intuitively went after that, but I had to be very harsh to stop him. So you stop your dog and you navigate your dog with your voice. I'm going to show you once again. Good. That's good boy. See, he stopped, so I release him immediately. That's how you navigate a dog. Here you go. You good boy too. You good boy too. You did well. You did very well in this video. You did very well. Good. Good boy. Good boy. Yes. Good boy. See? So you help your dog understand what you want from you with basic vocabulary of set of positive behavior words and a set of negative commands that you give when the dog is doing something wrong. And on top of that, you have to apply your tone of the voice to help the dog navigate and respond faster. So the higher your voice and harsher your voice, the more stronger he's doing something wrong, and so you have to apply that, and so the dog responds faster. And it's also very helpful when, let's say, dog is about to get into a fight and you have to put pressure on your dog and call it off. You're not going to call your dog, "Hey, Snoopy." No, you're going to have to yell at your dog and you have to be harsh with your voice. Or we're in California and I'm always worried about rattlesnakes, and so if I see a snake, my voice is very strong. I'm yelling my dog's name and I'm yelling no and I'm yelling come, and so the dog thinks, "Oh my God, what have I done? I don't know, but I have to run to my owner." And so that helps in many situations, not only training, but this begins with you as an owner, and you have to train yourself first to learn the vocabulary and train yourself to have those different voices that help your dog understand what you want from them. Okay, so happy training and we'll see you soon. Good boy.